While Thomas and Gordon were away being mended at Croven's gate, Henry took over running the express, and Duck watched over Thomas's branch line. The other engines tried to make up for the backlog, but it was hard work. Summer had arrived, and the railway was soon flooded with crowds of passengers and enthusiasts. Even the roads were getting overwhelmed, as Bertie the bus encountered firsthand. One night, he went to visit the engines at the sheds. "All this work is wearing me out," he said sadly. "I'm always late now, and the passengers won't stop complaining." "Passengers always complain," snorted James. "If we do our work properly, we don't get an ounce of gratitude. But should something go wrong, they make sure we're the first ones to hear about it." "In that case, I'm sure you wouldn't mind pulling Percy's goods trains for the next few days, eh, James?" chuckled Duck. "I know he enjoyed taking some passengers around, and the trucks would love to see you again." James fumed crossly, while the other engines laughed. Henry spoke up. "I do hope Thomas and Gordon return soon. I can't believe how busy the express trains have become since Gordon left. I've needed extra coaches and even a backing engine in some places." "Thomas's branch line isn't any better," huffed Duck. "It's been years since I've seen so many passengers traveling at once. Then there's still the Little Western. I trust Oliver and the twins will do their best, but even so..." "I, for one, hope those two engines won't be a problem when they come back," grumbled Edward. "I'm worried as to what will happen if they still have the same selfish attitudes they had before they left." But I'm sorry to say that Thomas and Gordon hadn't changed. After 2 stressful and exhausting weeks, the 2 engines returned home. Sir Topham had made sure to talk to them both severely before having them work. Thomas was to serve a punishment of shunting in the yards. He accepted his punishment without fuss, but Gordon refused to relent on taunting the little tank engine. Gordon puffed into the yard to collect his coaches. "Oh, how undignified," he huffed. "After all these years, they still expect me to shunt my own coaches like a tank engine? Just then, Thomas puffed in to begin shunting the other trains. "Oh, joy," groaned Gordon. "As if my morning couldn't get any better." "And a good morning to you, too," retorted Thomas. "Oh, go away, little Thomas," snapped Gordon, when suddenly an idea came to him. "You know what? Don't actually. You can arrange my train for me. That'll show the Fat Controller you still have a sense of responsibility." "I can't believe you're still this lazy after so many years," snarled Thomas. "It takes a special kind of engine to maintain an attitude that long. Perhaps if you just start looking at it differently, you'd start enjoying the stretch it gives your wheels in the morning and..." "Gordon? Gordon!" "Fiddlesticks!" he huffed, and went off to get the coaches. When Thomas pulled into the big station, Gordon was already there waiting. Thomas brought the coaches to a halt. Thomas pushed the express into motion, and Gordon puffed quickly away. Thomas sulked quietly away and went back to work in the yard. As the day went on, other engines came and went with their trains, and some even praised Thomas for his hard work. "Well done, Thomas," applauded Edward. Seems those tricks I taught you with handling trucks all those years ago still serves you well. Thomas smiled meekly. Thank you, Edward. I still owe you one for helping me like that. Henry and James arrived to collect their trains as well. Well, this has to be the most organized the yard's ever been, James said with amazement. Maybe we should keep Thomas here and let Duck have Annie and Clarabelle. Just joking, he laughed. Goodness me, the coaches haven't come along this quietly for ages. You must have magic buffers, Thomas. Tell me about it, agreed Henry. No tricks from the trucks and vans either. As Edward prepared to leave with his train, he spoke kindly to Thomas. Well, Thomas, I think it's safe to say that your hard work has put you back in the good graces of the others. Thomas smiled sheepishly. That night at the sheds, the other engines were all chatting amongst each other when Thomas arrived, much later than he should have. Gordon remained silent. Hello, Thomas, called Edward. What took you so long? Oh, just thought I'd do some extra shunting, Edward, sighed Thomas. I've arranged all the trains for tomorrow morning, so that way all of you can get your trains straight away, and then I can get an extra bit of resting. A morning without shunting, sighed James. Oh, I envy your luck, Thomas. Very clever, said Edward. It's clear you've got a great deal of initiative, Thomas. You proved that you can manage the yards quite well. Well, you can't be part of the Northwestern if you're a lazy engine, remarked Thomas. Puh! Snorted Gordon. Just because you've arranged all of their trains doesn't mean you can sleep in. You've still got to bring in my coaches to the platform. You know full well that the Express is the first train of the day, and it can't be kept waiting. Can't you just leave him be? Grumbled Duck. He's done some incredible work in the yard recently, and yet all you've done is scold, ridicule, and demean him. Because I simply don't see the benefit of the old age forgive and forget, retorted Gordon. The little engine had better be— Gordon, interrupted Thomas. I'm not going to argue with you. But I did leave your express coaches at the edge of the yard. You don't even have to do any shunting, or even go to the yard to get them. Gordon was taken aback. Ah, so you've done that too, have you? Well then, it seems you do still have some sense of responsibility then. At last, Thomas lost patience. And with that, Thomas puffed away, leaving a very cross set of engines behind. It was early morning when the firelighter arrived. Edward was first to have his fire lit. He decided that once he was ready, he was going to talk to the Fat Controller. When he arrived at the station, he was amazed to see that all the coaches were ready in their designated platforms. Edward, have you seen this? Remarked Sir Topham Hatt. All of the trains are at the platforms already. I'd like to assume that Thomas brought them here when he left the shed last night. He told us that they were sitting in the yards, replied Edward. Thomas left the shed? You see, sir, explained Edward, Thomas and Gordon have been a nightmare since they've come back. Well, mostly Gordon, mind you. He's been constantly degrading Thomas and not showing any appreciation for his efforts at all. I think it's starting to get to him. In fact, I think I can see him in the goods shed. Over there. Thank you for telling me, Edward. Please go and get your train. I'll have a word with him. Courtesy call for Mr. Tom Tipper. The Fat Controller walked over to Thomas and woke him up. Good morning, Thomas, he said. Good morning, sir, Thomas replied quietly. Edward tells me you've gone above and beyond your jobs, and you have earned a rest for now. When you start, I'll make sure that you'll have some help. Thomas was puzzled. Help, sir? I do appreciate the offer, but I've managed the yards well enough on my own. The Fat Controller smiled reassuringly. I understand that, Thomas, but you've undoubtedly been overworking yourself as well. Having some help will do you some good. Enjoy the rest, and I'll see you later. Thomas rested for a little while longer before he set off back to the yards. He had not been shunting for long when he heard a familiar and unwelcome whistle. Gordon steamed into the yard, grumbling mournfully. Sir, I don't see the point of having to shunt for the others. We've got the little one doing a fine job already. Then he saw Thomas. You see, sir, he's got the yard well handled. So can I please go back to the express? Then the fat controller stepped down from Gordon's cab. Oh, come now, Gordon, he chuckled. You once told me you enjoyed some quiet work. Once, sir, protested Gordon. I said that once. Well, now you can enjoy it again. I want you to help Thomas with the yard work. Run along now, there's a good engine. The two engines set to work at once. Thomas tried to keep to himself for as much as he could, but Gordon looked for every opportunity he could to belittle the tank engine. As time went on, though, Gordon became aware of something. Thomas was pushing himself, and it was becoming more and more obvious. He was shunting longer and heavier trains than Gordon had realized, and the strain was beginning to take its toll on him. Gordon pulled up alongside Thomas as he tried to pull a long line of tankers. Is everything all right, little Thomas? Gordon asked. Everything's fine, Gordon, he huffed. Don't you have some trucks of your own to worry about? Thomas tried to start off again with the train, but it was quite clear he was straining himself. Thomas, if you keep that up, you're going to end up hurting yourself again. But then Gordon moved quickly forward and blocked him at the points. Would you listen to me? Thundered Gordon. The two engines glared at each other before Gordon finally spoke. Look, I'm sorry for everything. My anger towards you, the way I've treated you, even for setting you off weeks ago. All of that was wrong of me. You've been nothing but kind and helpful ever since we got back, and all I've done is hold the accident against you. I was too stubborn to accept it. But what happened is in the past now, and I cannot let you keep working to the degree you are. You'll end up hurting yourself again. Thank you, Gordon, Thomas said slowly. I accept your apology. I know that it takes a lot for you to admit you're wrong. That it does, Gordon grunted in agreement. But I'm sure that my large ego of mine will recover soon enough. The two engines laughed at that. You know, I do believe you've earned yourself a rest, little Thomas, said Gordon. Come on, take a load off in the sidings. I'll work on these trains for a while. So while Thomas went to take a rest, Gordon handled the shunting in the yard. Soon enough, Thomas came back to help, but he had to work closely with Gordon and take smaller trains now. Pain had developed in his axles. Later that evening, the engines were all at the sheds. Thomas was upset. An inspector had been called in to look over the pains in his parts. Sir Topham had arrived to hear his assessment. At last, the inspector finished. Well, sir, with all the extra heavy shunting that Thomas has been doing in the yards, he's worn his axles quite badly. He'll need to return to the works as soon as possible. The fat controller was rather annoyed. Oh, Thomas, he began. I had hoped that it would not come back to this so soon. I do understand that incidents are bound to happen on the railway, but for one to happen so soon with the same engine... Please, sir, interrupted Gordon. Don't blame him. He's been nothing but a blessing recently. The fat controller turned to him, astonished to hear Gordon speak those words. It's more my fault, if anything, sir, Gordon said sheepishly. I kept edging him on about being unreliable and useless, so he kept working harder and harder until, well, we've come to this. Please give him another chance, sir. He really does deserve it. The Fat Controller smiled. Very well, then. Thomas, I will send you to the works first thing in the morning. Once you return, you shall be given back your branch line and a new coat of paint for all your hard work. Thomas was delighted. Oh, thank you, sir. He looked over to Gordon. Thank you again for apologizing and helping out today, Gordon. I really do appreciate it. Think nothing of it, little Thomas, Gordon said smugly. What was our old motto? United we stand, together we fall. You help me, and I help you. Words to live by, my dear engines. And where's that sense of unity when you're bragging about being the only engine who can properly pull the express? Inquired James. Or when you insist on being the first engine at the washdown? Asked Henry. And when you hog time at the coal hoppers? Huffed Duck. Gordon continued to go on, trying to defend his points, but before long, the other engines fell asleep. Gordon kept himself up for a while longer before looking over at Thomas and smiling.